The first time I tried to fire my billionaire boss, I did it through Google. If you like corporate tension, power plays, and bad decisions that escalate fast, subscribe now. This one gets worse before it gets better. Sterling Industries smelled like lemon disinfectant and burnt espresso, the kind of smell that clung to ambition. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, every desk identical, every screen glowing with performance dashboards and quarterly projections. My desk was the only rebellion in sight. 3 cracked coffee mugs, a leaning tower of color-coded Post-its, a succulent named Gerald that looked permanently disappointed in me, and my browser. How to fire your billionaire boss. I stared at the search bar like it might judge me, then hit enter. Nothing helpful. Apparently the internet assumes billionaires do the firing. Clark. His voice cut through the cubicle grid without rising. I didn't look up immediately. I finished the sentence I was typing, pressed save, and only then turned. Alexander Sterling didn't walk into spaces. He occupied them. Dark tailored suit, silver tie, cufflinks that probably had their own insurance policy. His jaw looked engineered. His eyes were the particular gray of approaching weather. The Morrison projections, he said. Where are we? Drafting, I replied. You said end of business tomorrow. A small pause. Today, he corrected. There are moments in life where your brain does arithmetic at dangerous speed. 5 years of financial data, competitive modeling, acquisition risk matrices, 2 hours. I wrote down tomorrow, I said carefully. He tilted his head. Not amused, not angry, measuring. Today. There are people who get louder when they're wrong. Alexander simply reduces oxygen in the room. Understood, I said. He watched me another half second, then left. The click of his shoes echoed long after he turned the corner. I opened a new tab. How to quit a job without notice. Deleted. Remote lighthouse keeper jobs. Scrolled. How to fire your billionaire boss legally. That one I kept open. There's something intimate about desperation in a search history. It's quieter than a meltdown, more honest than a resignation letter. Gerald leaned slightly to the left. I adjusted him toward the light. If this ends with unemployment, we're eating ramen, I told the plant. My monitor went black. I froze. Not flicker black, not screensaver black. Dead. You break it, came a voice behind me. Or is this symbolic? He'd returned without sound. Expensive shoes shouldn't move like that. I tapped the power button. Nothing. He stepped closer. Not rushed. Controlled. May I? He leaned over my shoulder and held the button down longer than I had. The screen blinked back to life. My stomach dropped before the browser did, because it restored my previous session. Every tab, every search. How to fire your billionaire boss. The fluorescent lights felt hotter. He didn't move immediately. Didn't speak. Just read. If humiliation had weight, it would have bent my spine. I turned in my chair slowly. Before you fire me, I said, I'd like to state for the record that Google suggested very little actionable guidance. Silence. Then, he laughed. Not polite laughter. Not corporate humor. Actual laughter. Sharp at first, then warmer. He ran a hand down his face as if resetting himself. Points for specificity, he said. Though I'm curious why you didn't include a contingency plan. You assigned 5 years of financial modeling in 2 hours. You handle pressure well. That wasn't pressure. That was psychological warfare. He studied me again. Different this time. Less CEO, more something else. It's due tomorrow, he said finally. I blinked. You just said, I wanted to see if you'd push back. I did, after Googling my termination. You were unreasonable, and yet you're still here. Rent, I said. He nodded once, accepting the answer. Then his eyes flicked back to the screen. What else have you been researching? I closed the browser too late. He'd seen it. Lighthouse keeper? It sounded quiet. Dog walking? Low overhead. He folded his arms. And seduction tactics for executive personalities? That one hit harder. I held his gaze. That was research. 4. Competitive analysis. His mouth twitched. Clark. Yes? Use incognito. And then he left again. I sat there, pulse still climbing, staring at the reflection of myself in the dark portion of the monitor. I didn't hate him. That was the problem. I hated the deadlines, the unpredictability, the way he could drop impossible expectations like chess pieces. But I didn't hate him. That evening, when most of the office cleared out, I was still there. The Morrison file open, my brain somewhere else. Tom from IT appeared beside my cubicle. Working late? Apparently, I enjoy suffering. He leaned on the divider. Security sweep tonight. Standard stuff. Define standard. Browser audits. Data scans. Nothing interesting unless someone's been Googling revolution. My jaw tightened. You read that? Clark, he said with a grin. I read everything. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder. And? I asked. And it was the most entertaining thing I've seen all quarter. He walked away before I could decide whether to laugh or delete my entire digital existence. At 5:58 p.m., my inbox pinged. From A. Sterling subject, Morrison review, 6 p.m. Please bring the projections. Also, the Thai place across the street overestimated portion size. No blank lines, no emojis. But it wasn't just a review meeting. It never was. I knocked at 6 sharp. His office overlooked the city, glass walls, skyline bleeding into twilight. There was Thai food, and Italian, and sushi, and something that smelled like charcoal smoke. You ordered from 4 places, I said. 5. I wasn't sure. Sure of what? What you'd actually eat. This wasn't a meeting. This was reconnaissance. He took his jacket off, rolled his sleeves up. The distance between boss and employee shrank in quiet, deliberate inches. You don't actually want to quit, he said. You don't actually want to fire me. A beat. I read your reports, he said. You anticipate risk before it exists. You don't panic. You adapt. And yet I Googled how to fire you. Yes, he said, which means you'd rather change the board than leave it. That wasn't something I'd said out loud. I set my fork down. What is this? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, not touching, just inside the boundary. I want to know what makes you stay, he said. Outside, traffic moved like distant veins of light. Inside, the air changed temperature. Careful, I said. HR exists. So does choice. That word landed heavier than the rest. Choice. He wasn't asking for submission. He was asking whether I was stepping forward. I was, and I knew it before I leaned in. The kiss wasn't dramatic. No swelling music. No fireworks. Just a controlled man losing control for half a second. His hand moved to my jaw. Mine gripped his collar. It lasted long enough to matter. Then, his phone buzzed. He pulled away first, checked the screen. His expression changed. Security alert, he said. The cameras flickered to life on his wall monitor. Tom, at my desk, plugging something into my computer. This isn't routine, Alexander said quietly. And the real story started there. Tom didn't panic when he saw us. That's what made my pulse steady instead of spike. Guilty people scramble. Prepared people calculate. He unplugged the cable from my workstation slowly, like someone finishing a sentence. Mr. Sterling, he said, polite as ever. Didn't expect you in the building this late. You're in the server corridor without authorization, Alexander replied. No raised voice, no theatrics, just fact. Tom shrugged lightly. Routine integrity test. With a personal tablet? Alexander asked. Tom's smile thinned. I stepped closer to my desk. The screen was still on. Command window open, file tree expanded. He hadn't just accessed my browser history. He'd mirrored my drive. Everything. Work drafts, acquisition notes, internal memos, personal folders I never meant to store here but did anyway because convenience beats discipline. You cloned my machine, I said. Backups are important, Tom replied. For who? He didn't answer that. Alexander moved around the cubicle wall, closing the distance without rushing. Who are you working for? He asked. Tom's jaw shifted slightly. Not fear. Adjustment. That depends, he said, on how cooperative you're feeling tonight. That word again. Cooperative. Alexander stopped 3 feet from him. You're confusing me with someone who negotiates under threat. Tom's eyes flicked to me. You may want to reconsider that position. There it was. Leverage. Alexander didn't look at me, but I saw the muscle tighten in his cheek. What exactly do you think you have? He asked. Tom lifted the tablet slightly. Communications, after-hours meetings, dinner deliveries, the security feed from this office. My stomach turned once, then settled. He'd recorded us, or thought he had. Personal conduct violations can get messy in boardrooms, Tom continued, especially during a hostile acquisition. Morrison, of course. Alexander had been negotiating aggressively. Everyone knew that. Rumors about Hale Industries circling like sharks had already started floating through finance. You're assuming this is disqualifying, Alexander said evenly. It's discrediting, Tom corrected, which is often more useful. Silence stretched thin. Then I stepped forward. Who's paying you? I asked. Tom looked mildly amused. You don't matter in this equation. Then why target my computer instead of his? That earned me a pause, because he didn't expect that question. He expected me to shrink. "You're the unsecured endpoint," he said. "You're the risk." "No," I said calmly. "I'm the access point." Alexander glanced at me now, just briefly. He understood what I was doing. Tom had mirrored my drive, which meant he had touched the network, which meant there would be logs, which meant he had left fingerprints. "You cloned from a live machine inside a monitored corporate structure," I continued, without a scheduled task order. Tom's grip tightened on the tablet. "You're not as clever as you think," he said. "Neither are you," I replied. "If you were, you'd have done this remotely." Alexander's voice cut in, quieter than before. "Who sent you?" Tom exhaled slowly. "Hale doesn't like losing." There it was. Hale Industries. Morrison acquisition. If Alexander pulled it off alone, Hale would lose billions in influence. "But Hale doesn't move personally," Alexander said. "He uses intermediaries." Tom smiled faintly. "You underestimate how motivating pride can be." Alexander stepped closer. "You're committing federal crimes over pride?" "I'm collecting information," Tom replied. "Information that makes people flexible." Flexible. They wanted leverage. If the board believed Alexander was involved in an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate during a critical acquisition window, they could delay the deal. If the press picked it up, shareholders would panic. All they needed was suggestion, not proof. Suggestion. Tom didn't need a scandal. He needed doubt. I looked at the tablet in his hands. "How much did you pull?" I asked. "Enough." Wrong answer. If he had everything, he would have said everything. He didn't. Alexander reached forward. Tom stepped back instinctively. That movement told me more than any admission. He was nervous. "Good. Building security is on its way," Alexander said. "No," Tom replied calmly. "They aren't." Alexander's phone buzzed at that exact moment. He glanced at it. His expression shifted. "Lobby override," he muttered. Tom smiled properly now. "You're not the only one with access." My pulse slowed further. 3 weeks ago, I would have panicked. Tonight, I calculated. "If you release that footage," I said, "you're admitting to illegal surveillance." Tom shook his head. "No, it will surface anonymously. Concerned employee, ethical breach." Whispers spread faster than indictments. He wasn't wrong. Scandal doesn't need proof. It needs timing. And timing during acquisition season is lethal. Alexander's voice dropped another degree. "You think threatening her gets you a better deal?" Tom looked at me again. "She's not the leverage. She's the pressure point." I held his stare. "You're assuming I'd claim coercion." That made him blink, because that hadn't crossed his mind. "If I tell the board you pursued me inappropriately," I continued evenly, "and I provide a time-stamped record of your data theft attempt tonight," I let that sit. Tom's jaw shifted again. "You wouldn't," he said. "You don't know me." He didn't. He saw a mid-level employee. He didn't see the scholarship kid who survived on contingency plans. He didn't see the debate team captain who learned how to dismantle arguments cleanly. He saw risk, not strategy. Alexander didn't interrupt. He let me work. "Good. You're threatening reputational harm," I said, "which means you need us scared." Tom said nothing. "You're not here to destroy him," I concluded. "You're here to stall him." That was it. Stalling the Morrison deal buys Hale time to counteroffer. Time equals leverage. Tom's silence confirmed it. "Delete what you pulled," I said. Or we escalate publicly." He almost laughed. "You think a public fight benefits you?" "No," I said, "but it ruins your timeline." That part was true, and he knew it, because corporate predators depend on quiet. Noise attracts regulators. Sirens sounded in the distance, real ones. Alexander hadn't overridden anything. He had triggered silent escalation protocol the moment Tom plugged in. Tom heard them too. His posture shifted from composed to constrained. "You're making this worse," he said. "No," Alexander replied. "You did that when you stepped into my building." Tom looked between us, calculating exit routes. "Think carefully," he said finally. "Once this moves beyond this room, it doesn't stop." "It already moved beyond this room," I said. He hesitated, then dropped the tablet to the floor. Hard. The screen cracked. He tried to crush it under his heel. Alexander moved faster than I'd ever seen him move. One clean step. One grip on Tom's wrist. Controlled. Not rage. Precision. "Enough," Alexander said quietly. Security flooded the corridor 30 seconds later. Tom didn't fight when they took him. That bothered me more than resistance would have. As they led him away, he looked back once. "At some point," he said calmly. "You'll realize what you've cost him." Then he was gone. The office felt different without him. Less fluorescent, more real. Alexander released a slow breath. "You shouldn't have stepped forward," he said. "You would have," I replied. He didn't deny it. Silence settled between us. The acquisition, the board, the footage. This wasn't over. It had just shifted arenas. Alexander turned to the shattered tablet pieces. "They didn't get what they needed," he said. "You're sure?" "I don't gamble with internal surveillance." That was when I understood. He hadn't relied on Tom's access. He had been monitoring IT traffic since rumors about Hale surfaced. He had expected infiltration, just not through me. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" "For being the unsecured endpoint." His eyes snapped to mine. "You were never the weakness." He meant it. That mattered. Security returned to take statements. By the time the police left, it was nearly midnight. The skyline outside his office was quiet. We stood alone in the glass reflection. "Are you safe?" he asked. "Define safe." He stepped closer. Not dramatic, just closer. "They will try again," he said. "Maybe not through you, maybe not this way, but they won't stop." "I know. And if this damages your career..." "It won't," I said. He studied me carefully. "Why are you so certain?" "Because I'm not ashamed of us." That wasn't romantic. It was strategic. Shame is leverage. I wasn't offering it. He searched my face for doubt. He didn't find it. "We'll need to disclose to the board," he said finally. "Then we disclose. You realize what that means. Policy reviews, ethics hearings, rumors. And if they ask whether I felt pressured?" He held still. That question mattered. "Then I'll tell them," I said evenly, "that you never once asked me to choose between my job and you." The air shifted again. Different this time. Quieter. He reached for my hand. Didn't pull me. Just held it. "Madison," he said. He never used my first name in the office. Not like that. "This gets harder before it gets easier. I don't quit during the hard part," I replied. That wasn't bravado. It was policy. Outside, emergency lights faded. Inside, the boardroom battle had already begun. And this time, I wasn't Googling how to fire my billionaire boss. I was learning how to win beside him. The board meeting was scheduled for 8 a.m. That told me everything. Emergency sessions usually meant panic. This one meant control. Alexander didn't ask me to stay home. He didn't tell me to avoid the building. He sent one message at 6:12 a.m. Conference Room A. "If you're coming, come prepared. Not protective, not possessive. Equal." I wore navy, structured blazer, no soft edges, hair pulled back tight. If they were going to look for weakness, they wouldn't find it in presentation. The boardroom overlooked the river, frost on the glass, 12 leather chairs, 11 men over 50, one woman who ran compliance and missed nothing. They were already seated when we entered. Alexander didn't walk in front of me. He didn't walk behind me. We walked in together. That mattered. "Let's begin," the chairman said. He didn't waste time. "We're aware of last night's security breach. We're aware of the alleged personal relationship." Alleged. Good language. Neutral. Alexander spoke first. "There was an attempted data theft tied to Hale Industries. Internal logs confirm unauthorized mirroring from Miss Clark's workstation." He slid a folder across the table. "Clean documentation, timestamps, traffic logs, IT forensic breakdown." He had built his defense before breakfast. "Regarding the relationship," he continued, "there is no coercion, no preferential compensation, and no policy violation as defined under Section 4.3. Disclosure is being made voluntarily." Voluntarily. That was key. All eyes turned to me. "Miss Clark," the compliance director said, "were you pressured into any personal involvement with Mr. Sterling?" I didn't hesitate. "No." "Were career opportunities implied in exchange?" "No." "Are you concerned about retaliation if you were to answer differently?" I held her gaze. If I were concerned, I wouldn't be here. Silence. One of the older board members cleared his throat. "You understand the optics?" "Yes," I said. "And you're willing to proceed anyway?" "Yes." No emotional speech, no declaration, just yes. Because that's what power sounds like when it's calm. They questioned timelines, asked about reporting structures, suggested reassignment. Alexander didn't interrupt once while they questioned me. He let me stand on my own answers. That mattered more than anything he could have said. After 42 minutes, the chairman closed the folder. "The acquisition remains on track," he said. "Internal review will monitor the reporting line." That was corporate language for behave carefully. We stood to leave. Miss Clark, the compliance director added, you'll receive formal notification regarding structural changes to your role. Structural changes. I knew what that meant before the email hit my inbox. By noon, it arrived. Subject: position realignment, senior strategic analyst salary increase, direct reporting to the board acquisition committee, not to Alexander. Clean, unassailable, earned. I walked into his office without knocking. He was already reading the same email. You moved me out from under you, I said. He leaned back in his chair. I moved you into authority. That's a demotion risk for you. I don't need control over you to work with you. He said it like it was obvious. Was this always the plan? I asked. No, he admitted, but I won't give them a reason to question your competence. He stood, walked around the desk, close enough that the air changed temperature. They were impressed, he said quietly. Not by me. I know. We didn't touch. Not in daylight. That line stayed intact. The rumor mill spun anyway. It always does. Jennifer from HR cornered me in the kitchen 3 days later. Are you two officially corporate now? She asked. Officially compliant, I replied. She laughed. You look different. How? Less cubicle. That was accurate. The new office had a door, real lighting, and space for Gerald. Alexander didn't mention Gerald. He just sent a grow light to my office anonymously. Margaret left a note with it. Plants thrive under intentional light. No signature. Margaret approved. That was its own milestone. The acquisition closed 2 weeks later. Hale Industries issued a bland public statement. Strategic shift in direction. Translation: they lost. Tom pled to lesser charges. Corporate espionage tends to look ugly in federal court. The press never got a whisper of scandal, because there wasn't one. There was documentation, disclosure, structure. We didn't win because we were romantic. We won because we were disciplined. 3 months after the board meeting, I stayed late voluntarily. Not because of deadlines, because I wanted to. Alexander was in his office, jacket off, sleeves rolled. When I entered, he didn't look surprised. You don't have to stay, he said. I know. That was the difference. Choice. He crossed the room slowly. No urgency. No performance. You could leave, he said quietly. Take the salary jump. Leverage the title somewhere else. Is that what you want? No. Honest. I'm not staying because it's dramatic, I said. I'm staying because I like building things. With me? With you. He searched my face like he was verifying a contract clause. You're certain? He asked. Yes. That word again. Yes. He exhaled slowly. You understand what my life looks like. High stakes, long hours, strategic enemies. And I'm not scared of complicated. That earned the smallest smile. He reached for my hand, still careful, still controlled. I don't want you because it's convenient, he said. I want you because you challenge me. That's a terrible reason. It's the only one that lasts. Silence stretched, but it wasn't tense. It was steady. I love you, he said. Not dramatic, not rushed, just placed on the table between us, like a contract. I didn't respond immediately, not because I didn't feel it, because I understood the weight. I know, I said first. He almost laughed at that. And I love you, I added. Clean, simple, earned. No swelling music, no metaphors, just alignment. 6 months earlier, I had Googled how to fire him. Now I sat in acquisition meetings dismantling competitors beside him, not behind him, beside. Gerald thrived under the new lighting. Margaret occasionally, accidentally scheduled us at the same events. The board stopped watching so closely once performance numbers spoke for themselves, and I stopped Googling escape routes. Not because my life became easy, because it became intentional. One night, long after the acquisition dust settled, we stood at the window of his penthouse. City lights below. No crisis, no threat, no audience. Do you ever miss when I thought you were the villain? I asked. He smirked faintly. You still think that sometimes. Occasionally. And I prefer you on my side. He nodded once. That's good, he said. Because I don't build things halfway. Neither do I. And that was the real reason this worked. Not money, not power, not proximity. Structure, choice, and 2 people who refused to weaponize each other. The first time I tried to fire my billionaire boss, I used Google. The last time I considered leaving, I didn't open a browser. I opened a strategy deck, and that made all the difference.